The Right Way by Lev Tolstoy. Among the Patagonians, there is a current the following tradition. At first, it runs, God created men so that they had no need to work, nor to provide themselves with shelter, clothing, or food. Every man lived to be 100 exactly and was immune from disease. Time passed on, and when God looked down to see how mankind was faring, he found that instead of rejoicing in their lot, men were thinking only of themselves, quarreling with each other, and ordering their existence in such a way that life was to them rather a curse than a blessing. Then God said to himself, this comes of their living apart from one another, each man for himself. So to put an end to that, he made it impossible for men to live without labor. If they would avoid suffering from cold and hunger, they must build themselves dwellings, till the ground, and rear flocks and herds. Labor will unite them, thought God to himself. No man can hew and draw wood, build dwellings, forge implements, sow, reap, spin, weave, or make clothing alone. Therefore, men will be forced to recognize that the more they associate in labor, the more they will produce, and the more comfortable will their life be. This cannot but unite them. Time passed on, and once more God looked down to see how mankind was faring, and whether it were now rejoicing in its lot. Yet he found men living even worse than before. True, they worked together, they could not do otherwise, but not altogether, for they had divided themselves up into groups, each of which strove to depute its labor to another, as well as hindered its fellows, and wasted both time and energy in quarreling. This was bad for all of them. Seeing this, God decided to make men ignorant of the precise moment of their death, as well as liable to die at any age instead of 100 exactly. This expedient he justified to himself thus. When men know that they may die at any moment, they will be too careful of their lives, hanging as those lives will be by a single thread, to rage against one another, and so put in jeopardy those hours of life which may be allotted them. Yet things turn out quite otherwise. When God looked down once more to see how mankind was faring, he found that the life of men had in no way altered for the better. Some men were stronger than others, and so were able to avail themselves of the fact that death might come at any moment to intimidate those weaker than themselves by killing a certain proportion of them and threatening the rest. Thus an order of life had arisen in which a certain number of strong men and their followers did no work at all, but consumed themselves in idleness, while the weaker were forced to work beyond their strength and deteriorated for want of rest. Each of these two classes feared and detested the other, and the life of mankind had become more unhappy than ever. Seeing how things stood, God determined to make use of the last remedy of all. That is to say, he sent every kind of disease among men. For he thought that when they become subject to disease, they would realize that the healthy man must pity and assist the sick, so that if he himself fell ill, he too might receive assistance from the healthy. Then for a time God left mankind alone. But when he looked down once more to see how things were getting on, he found that from the very moment when men had been made subject to disease, their life had been growing steadily worse. The diseases which God had thought would unite them had only served to sunder them more. Those who had been used to compelling others to work for them now compelled them also to wait upon them when sick, although they themselves took no thought whatever for other sufferers. At the same time, those who were compelled not only to work for others, but also to wait upon them when sick, were so overburdened with labor that they had no opportunity to tend to their own sick folk, and so had to leave them helpless. Moreover, some diseases were recognized to be infectious, so that, dreading the infection, many men would neither go near the sufferers nor consort with those who had come in contact with them. Then God said to himself, since by these means I have failed to bring men to understand wherein lies their true happiness, I will leave them to arrive at their result through their own tribulations. Thenceforth, therefore, God left mankind alone. Abandoned to their own devices, men lived for a long time without understanding the means by which it was both possible and right for them to live happily. But at last some of them began to realize that labor need not of necessity mean for some a means of subjecting their fellows, and for others a kind of penal servitude, but rather a source of joy uniting all men in one. Likewise, they realized that in face of that death which threatened every man hourly, the only prudent course for them was to make up their minds to spend in concord and love such years, months, days, hours, or minutes as might be ordained to them. Lastly, they realized not only that disease should not be a source of division among men, but that, on the contrary, it should be a source of loving good fellowship.